Chapter 15. There's always another way. Have you ever said, my mind is made up and that's it. I'm not budging. But then someone comes along and provides you with some new information and with a convincing case for why you should consider another point of view. And you think, I didn't see it that way before. Or what about your mood? Has someone ever changed your mood, either for the good or for the bad? My husband has this uncanny ability to make me laugh when I don't want to. When Vaughn and I first started traveling, after me becoming a person with a disability, my first trip to the airport in my wheelchair was quite the experience. We went to the baggage counter, and the lady told me that I would have to check my chair, my cool chair, with the baggage and sit in this ugly, oversized wheelchair. It was gray with a bright orange flag waving about 6 feet high above me. I was about to lose it when Vaughn saw the tears in my eyes and knew I was about to have a moment. So he leaned over and he said, "It's okay, sweetie. They have to save all the ugly chairs for the pretty girls." I went from almost bawling my eyes out to laughing. Yes, it was great that he shifted my perspective in that moment amidst the flowing of what I now know is my new normal life. But in those early stages, I couldn't see past my disability and how it was defining me. I was consumed with fear and insecurities daily. And the perspective I had about myself and everything in my life was that it was this big hopeless mess. I think of all the things that could cause us to keep the perspective of fear, worry, or overwhelming anxiety. The list, I'm sure, is endless, but my discovery is that our perspective of ourself or our circumstances, and yes, even our perspective of God, can limit us and hold us back from receiving full freedom. I'm praying that I can provide you with some new information that will help you change your view of you, that will in turn help you change your perspective on the things in your life, if you're willing to see it another way. I want to talk about a few things that we need to change our perspective on: ourself, our circumstance, and God. But I want to talk about our view of self. And I know that it will be hard because I know how hard it was. How hard do you think it was for me when I was first paralyzed? You see, I spent the majority of my time and energy focusing on all the things I couldn't do. I was limited because I didn't want to do things if I couldn't do them the way I did before. That approach was keeping me stuck, and it left me feeling even more overwhelmed and insecure. You see, that mindset affected everything I did and limited my independence even more. I remember saying, I don't even want to drive unless I can drive with my feet. I wanted desperately to be independent, yet I refused to do it differently than I did before. I had the perspective that doing it differently made me less of a person. This perspective was more paralyzing than my disability or more limiting than this chair I'm sitting in. When I first started seeing other people who had less mobility than me doing far more than what I was doing, I realized my view of myself was holding me back. I knew I had a choice to make. I could stay focused on all the things that I couldn't do and remain stuck, or shift my focus to what I can do. You see, I wanted to drive, but to move past my self-imposed limitation, I had to find another way. If I refused another way, I wouldn't be driving today. That choice to accept driving with hand controls instead of my feet gave me so much more independence. This independence unlocked some freedom in me, and it boosted my confidence. This change in perspective enabled me to have courage then to try other things. Now, not only am I driving, but I have been rock climbing, downhill skiing, zip lining, and yes, even skydiving. And I didn't want to drive because I couldn't do it the way I did before. What was I thinking? And that list of physical achievements don't even mention becoming an author, motivational speaker, or starting my own nonprofit organization. No, I may not be able to do things the way I did them before, but I know now there is more than one way if you're willing to accept it. Get this. I returned home from running errands one day. I pulled into my garage and I got out of my car, rolled onto the lift that allows me to access my home without having to climb stairs. Well, the keypad to the side door of my house didn't work. Apparently the battery died in the keypad and it wouldn't let me enter the code to get in. Yes, I could have called my neighbor to come. I could have called any number of amazing friends who have always been so willing to help me. Yeah, there were times in the past that I have, but this particular day I had a thought. I bet you I can get in that front door. So I went around to the front door, got out of my chair, bumped my way up the steps, and stretching as far as I could, I managed to unlock the front door. Then, wormed my way into the house and unlocked the garage door. Then, sliding back down the steps, I got into my chair and returned to the garage door to find it open. Mission accomplished. No, I couldn't get in my house the way I had before, but I found there is another way. Like the old saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way. You see, these stories might not seem like life-changing situations to you, but for me, they were. There was a time when I actually needed 2 nurses to change me. That process left me feeling like I would never get my confidence or my dignity back. These insecurities and fears were magnified when I was told that I would always have to be dependent on others for my personal care and mobility. Now, every step forward is a valued treasure to me. Gaining my independence in these areas, after seemingly losing it through the initial paralysis, was life-changing for me. My husband told me about an experience his dad had when he visited India many years ago. He described how the locals were moving dirt in bags on their shoulders from one location to another. John asked them, why did they do it that way rather than using a wheelbarrow? He soon realized they didn't even know what a wheelbarrow was. Without that equipment, their way was the way they'd always did it. I guess this illustration could be used with us in life, right? People naturally, they don't like change, but God knows there is another way, a better way. That better, yet unknown way holds the potential to bring improvement into many areas of our lives. And once we discover the better way, we must then be willing to accept it. You see, if I didn't change my perspective and find another way to view myself, my circumstances, I would still be at home on my couch, consumed with fear and still depressed. I never would have discovered that I have access to this extra strength and courage if I didn't try and find another way. Okay, you're going to laugh at me for this next story, but I believe that car trouble or things breaking down in general is something that follows me more than the average Joe. And if you know me, you know that's true. However, whether you are willing to find another way to view your unwelcome circumstances or not, I think we can agree that they make for some great stories after the fact, right? So let me tell you one. One morning, I was up and ready for a full day of meetings. My first meeting was across town, and since I pride myself in being on time, I was actually ready and heading out earlier than usual. I went to start my car, but unfortunately the battery was dead. I quickly called roadside assistance and thought that maybe I could still get to my meeting and on time. That was truly wishful thinking on my part. You see, before long, I was beginning to get frustrated by this disruption in my day. I thought to myself, okay, I can't change this, so I might as well embrace it. I even prayed. I'm like, oh God, help me out here. Help me be okay with this delay and help me overcome my frustration now for missing this first meeting. The gentleman who came to help with my car had to get something out of my trunk, and he saw my box of books. With excitement, he asked, "Hey, is that you on the cover? Did you write this book?" Well, that sparked a wonderful conversation that included him sharing his own pain journey. He ended by saying how honored he was to have met me. He thanked me for the courage to keep going so that others can be encouraged to keep going. Looking for different ways to view myself or my situation has indeed given me a courageous perspective. I also found that afterwards, missing that meeting turned out to be a blessing, actually, in disguise. Without getting into all the details, I'll just say this, that I'm glad there was a better way for my morning to begin that day. And even though I had been frustrated, without the Lord's better way to try to view our circumstances or ourselves, you see, I would have missed out on that beautiful experience and the opportunity to see my situation another way and not see that man who needed encouragement. Do you feel trapped in the emotions you are feeling because of the way you view yourself or your situation or maybe even God? I think about all the things that you may have experienced in your life, and especially during the COVID season, right? These things may be causing you anxiety, but maybe I suggest that it's because you stay focused on all the things that you can't control. That indeed will heighten your anxiety. And before we head into some reflection time, I want to remind or maybe encourage you to remember the promise of 2 Timothy 1:7 that says, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. Please allow yourself some time to sit and reflect on your current mindset or situation as you consider the following questions. First of all, I want to ask you, what negative view do you have about yourself or your circumstance that's obstructing your ability to find another way? The next thing I want you to reflect on is this. What one thing can you do today that can help you consider the possibility of finding another way? And lastly, I want to ask you this. What positive effect do you think that your courage to find another way could have on someone else? I want to challenge you to look at the obstacles or giants in your path and tell yourself this. There's always another way if we're willing to see it. And with God's help and this shift in perspective, it's not only another way, you guys, it's a better way.